Welcome back to the Mission-Fu Sonoma Speed Tour with historic Trans Am. They just gave a 5, but I want to show something really cool about these Trans Am cars. He still has the original GM little door markers here, the original door cards. This is Bill Godwin here in this beautiful Camaro. The driver was Dwayne Winkle. You can see the hand-painted graphics. Bill, I'll help you close your door. You want to lock it? No, okay, no lock it, he says. Just want to make sure it's a rough neighborhood. You never know. Then we've got the car here, this Mustang that was driven by Bob Barker. Not the Bob Barker, not the come on down Bob Barker, but looking awesome out there. And then one of our most famous cars in historic Trans Am is this beautiful classic wax Challenger that was driven by Sam Posey, very famous from the 1970 season. You can see that the driver, Richard Goldsmith, has brand new sticker tire Goodyears on there, which means he might be moving up to the front. Becky's blowing a whistle. One thing you should know about this race, Jonathan, is they've inverted the top 6. They've put the top 6 back to the back. They did that just because it makes for a better show. It's going to be really fun to watch those drivers come up through, and I agree with that 100%. But now it's getting way too loud down here as I look at Brian Farron in his Boss 302, driven by Dean Gregson. I'm going to have to send it back up to you guys.
Thank you, Ben Sissel, as the historic Trans Am cars rumbling off the false grid, headed out onto Sonoma International Raceway. And what a great rolling history of Trans Am going out on track, as we are going to be looking at Ford Mustangs, Ford Boss 302s, Chevrolet Camaros, and Z28s. Of course, that lone Dodge Challenger that was being shown on screen, the number 77, driven by Sam Posey back in the day. There were supposed to be 2 of those Dodge Challengers in that season, but Dodge cutting back its after the first 2 races, and Sam Posey driving that car into 4th in the 1970 season. That lime green, or slime green as they used to call it, and black classic wax Porsche Dodge Challenger, the number 77 for Posey. Have a lot of history here. 1966 was the first race ever held at the Sebring International Raceway for the Trans Am Series. It was known then as the Trans Am Sedan Championship. Then it was in 1968 rather, it was changed to Trans Am Championship. John Bishop started this Trans Am Championship back in the day, also instrumental in starting the IMSA, 2 of the great series that are alive and continuing on to today, and a great way to transition from the historic Trans Am cars going out on course to the contemporary Trans Ams. We'll be seeing Trans Am 2 later on today at 1:40 p.m. But again, those Ford Boss 302s, legendary in the hands of George Fulmer and Parnelli Jones for Bud Moore and the Ford Boss 302 factory team. Of course, the Chevrolet Camaro, most famous from Mark Donahue. But Donahue and Roger Penske both very instrumental in the development of the Chevrolet Camaro, and also being able to get some parts to other competitors. It was not uncommon for a driver that was having trouble with his Camaro, either handling or speed-wise, to go to Mark Donahue and say, can you drive this car, can you test it? And Donahue would be more than happy to get in that car. He would give you great feedback and would obviously have the car up to speed by the time that the race happened. Again, Mark Donahue and Roger Penske, they wanted their Chevrolet Camaro, of course, to win, but just as long as the Camaro did win, they were very happy. Pace car going up through, I believe that is turn 6, the carousel. We're going into Optima Batteries turn 7 behind the pace car. Again, this is going to be a fun race to watch because, as Ben said, they have added a little bit of intrigue to this race as they have taken the top 6 from yesterday and put them at the very back of the field. One of those cars to watch is Craig Conley. Conley in the only grabber green Mustang. That is a 1970 Ford Boss 302, the second model year for the Ford Boss 302. Be coming up through the Franklin Road S's, or actually be coming down the Franklin Road S's towards WeatherTech turn 10. We'll be going around Big Machine Vodka Spike Coolers turn 11, and we'll be looking for the green flag this time by, as the pace car will be going into the pit lane. Chevrolet Camaro, Dodge Challenger, Ford Mustang, those were the factory cars. Coming around Big Machine Vodka Spike Coolers turn 11 very shortly here, momentarily, as the pace car going into pit lane. Again, this will be a very intriguing race as we have fast cars up at the front. Don't get me wrong, but the faster cars, are back in the back 6 positions as this field has been inverted. Being joined up here by Ben Sissel, and yes, the same Ben Sissel you just saw on the grid walk. You're very quick, Ben. I think you've gotten faster.
Thanks to my scooter, yeah. This is one of the greatest racing groups out there. You see there, front 1968 Chevrolet Camaro Z28. Ryan Turry in the Ford Mustang. This is so much fun to watch. And there is the only Nova to have ever raced in the Trans Am Series, being run by Linda Montanas. So let's see what she has here for everybody as they come to take the green flag side by side. Some of the best starts in motorsports are here with historic Trans Am, as it looks like Bill Godwin's moving up. Ryan Turry there, but then Richard Goldsmith in that Sam Posey car coming up right alongside that Bob Barker Mustang.
And again, we're going to be watching a little bit further back here in the pack as, again, this field inverted the top 6 from yesterday, and that includes John Hildebrand in that Pontiac Tempest GTO at the back of the pack. They're going to have to work their way up through the field. This will be a very exciting race, much like in the day there, Ben.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so much fun. And, you know, every once in a while, SVRA or Trans Am will post some of the old historic films from this era, 66 to 72. And watching some of these races, it's like, you know, being in a time machine. As we watch, look at that, Bill Godwin, Ryan Turry side by side through there as they come into WeatherTech Carousel. Lots of side-by-side racing in historic Trans Am. These men and women race with each other so much. They know where they're better than each other, and they trust each other because, like we said, these are priceless works of arts of history, and these drivers know what they're driving. They treat these cars like they're the custodians of these cars, and but it's still some of the best racing I've ever seen.
And I think that's what is the most impressive part. We saw them last weekend at Monterey at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, and we can't emphasize enough, we said it yesterday during this feature race for Saturday, these are the original cars. These are not replicas. These are not, you know, production cars or throwback cars, whatever. These are the cars that raced in that series. These are the liveries that they raced in during that series, and to see them out here running around Sonoma International Raceway at speed, they're beautifully prepared and beautifully taken care of.
Yeah, we just saw there the Brian Farron car, 28A, 1969 Ford Boss 302. And number 13 is Dennis Singleton in 1970 Chevrolet Camaro.
And we were talking yesterday, you were talking about Linda Montanas. Mark, her husband, runs in one of the cars that was actually a project car. It was bought off the dealer showroom, and it was given to Chaffee College of Automotive Technology, and they said, here's your car. The project is to make it into a Trans Am race car, and they did. Paul Van Valkenburg drove that, as well as the late, great Paul Newman driving that car. The number 1, the Chevrolet Camaro, driven by Mark Montanos.
Look at that. Bill Godwin, Ryan Turry, side by side, going up through Mission Foods Turn 2, but Ryan Turry got the best of Bill Godwin as Richard Goldsmith in that Sam Posey Challenger looks to maybe take over Bill Godwin, but not just yet. Now they come down a hill. You can't see it on the drone. That is a steep hill into this right-hand turn. And now they're downhill, a little bit of a sweeper into that WeatherTech Carousel. And the carousel and these big, heavy cars with all this horsepower, if you get it wrong, you get it really wrong, because that's a downhill carousel, a little bit off camber, and it just kind of throws you right here into this other side of the drag strip. You're carrying a lot of G-forces. Yeah,
if you get, as you said, you get turn 5 and 6 wrong, for turn 5 wrong, it'll rather push that car up, and then, of course, you're going to be trying to control that car as your competitors go right underneath you and head down towards turn 7, the Optima Batteries turn. But these cars, I love to watch them because these big, heavy cars, were a lot of these bodies, at least the factories did acid dip them to make, you know, the bodies as light as they could, but they were still big, heavy cars. The shifters, you slammed the shifter and you didn't delicately put in there. You slammed it into first, you slammed it into second, and you had this car sliding underneath you. You're trying to control the steering on it. You can see these hands moving back and forth, especially through here, this technical turns, and it was just a lot of fun to watch.
Ooh, look at that, Richard Goldsmith hanging out the back end of that
Just like that.
Yeah, exactly, just like that. As they come into this braking zone, Richard Goldsmith has the corner, turn 11, Big Machine Vodka Spike Cooler, turn 11. Looks like that Challenger has the best of it. And I have to give it up for Ryan Turry, who's currently leading this race. he's wearing the white driver's gloves so that we can see what his hands are doing. So he got my memo about that. Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah, and again, we've talked all weekend long, Ben, and when Jonathan was up here with us as well, that this is a very technical track. There's not very much long straightaways, which these cars excel at, but these cars also very good. But again, you kind of have to pick out where your point's going to be and slide the car into that point before you accelerate. It's not really a delicate turn or a precise turn like some of the Formula Series we've been watching earlier in the broadcast today.
Yeah, one of the series regulars, Ken Epsman, who drives the Roy Woods Javelin we were talking about, he was telling me at a track like this, you steer just as much with the throttle as you do the wheel. You know, he's hanging it out there and using the throttle to bring the back end to where it's point and shoot, basically.
And Bill Aukerlin is over this historic Trans Am Series. He is usually out here in one of these cars. Unfortunately, Aukerlin a little bit under the weather this weekend, not able to join us. That Javelin usually is out here, but the Camaro of Mark Donahue that one of the owners has, and a couple of other cars, Boss 302 Mustangs of Jim Hagan, Jim Halsey, they had a problem with their engines, with the pistons. Pistons have been delayed in getting shipped over here to the U.S., so some of these cars that would be out there, unfortunately, are sidelined, but we do hope to have them back in September as they'll be running with SVRA at Watkins Glen.
And I love seeing the historic Trans Am cars racing at the tracks that they would have raced back in the day. And there's some great footage that we've shared on our SVRA Facebook of these cars racing at Watkins Glen back in the day. And there's the 13. It's funny because if I remember correctly, Brian Farron used to drive that number 13 every once in a while, but now he's ahead of the number 13 in the 28A. I think that's the car that Rob Kaufman used to have years ago, raced here just a few years ago, but that is the number 13 driven by Dennis Singleton, 70 Chevrolet Camaro.
Yeah, the Chevrolet Camaro, of course, iconic car, both the Camaro and the Z28. The first actual manufacturer points that were scored by Chevrolet, and we talked about this last weekend at Monterey, was not actually scored by a Camaro. It was scored by a Chevrolet Corvair that was shared by Donna Mae Mims. And the reason that the Corvair was out there was the Chevrolet Camaro the engine was not developed for it as of yet. It was later on in the year, and they used it in the 1967 season. But for a first manufacturer points, they scored 2 manufacturer points at the very first season of Trans Am Championship for Chevrolet.
So I'm seeing on our comments that Austin Biddle is watching his dad, James Biddle. It's a great shot of him right there in front of Craig Conley. And then we've asked on SpeedTour TV, what's your favorite generation of Trans Am racing? This may get me in trouble because I work for the Trans Am series, current Trans Am, but this is my favorite generation of Trans Am racing. I love calling these races.
And I think it might get me a little bit in trouble too, but you know, we had Willie T. Ribbs as our Grand Marshal last weekend, and that era when he and David Hobbs were in that.
Is that Brian Farron getting it real sideways on that straightaway? Sorry to interrupt you there, but I think Brian Farron, good save by Brian Farron. That was a moment. He's going to have to change his race suit as we go side by side here with James Biddle and Craig Conley. It's getting heated up. Now, let me tell you something about these. Like we said, these the cars that are set up just as they were from 66 to 72. Some of the tires are going away. I was showing you that Richard Goldsmith had sticker tires on there, and I'm guessing Brian Farron did not.
And I believe Craig Conley was one of the drivers that was in that inverted back 6 there, and he's worked his way up to the front to contest for the lead with Turi and Goldsmith. Conley in the 1970 Ford Boss 302 Mustang, a Dodge Challenger up there, and I believe we have a Chevrolet Camaro, just like the days gone by with the factory wars. You know, win on Sunday, sell on Monday. The manufacturers were very interested in having their cars win, and they used that in their marketing campaigns to sell these cars because these cars were in dealer showrooms. They wanted to sell those cars. Not much has changed, still using racing as a platform for development of different things as well as marketing for the cars themselves.
And there it is. I was talking to Chad Raynal earlier about that Herb Adams Pontiac Tempest that had Bob Tullius behind the wheel, the Gray Ghost, one of the most famous cars in this. And you look at a car like that and you're like, I don't see why or how they made that into a race car, but it was really successful. And as you can see right now, John Hildebrandt behind the wheel of that car makes for a potent combination. Look at this. This is what I love about historic Trans Am. This big group of cars here that I think is being led by Brian Farron, followed by Richard Goldsmith, it looks like, Bill Godwin, Craig Conley, James Biddle. Dennis Singleton, and then John Hildebrandt, as Ryan Turry has kind of pulled out to a big lead. But this group racing is what we're used to seeing here in historic Trans Am. James Biddle and that Pontiac Tempest, and John Hildebrandt going at it into Optima Batteries, turn 7.
And John Hildebrandt was yesterday's winner, and I think the rest of the group was a little bit surprised that that was the fastest qualifier yesterday after the 2 rounds of qualifying, that Pontiac Tempest GTO of John Hildebrandt winning yesterday, and he's coming up from the back, but he's making his way up. If he can get around this group, he may be able to have something for Turry.
And there's that Chaffee College car you were talking about of Mark Montanos.
Yeah.
Paul Newman drove that car.
Yep.
That is really cool.
And you know, what great history here. The only Pontiac Tempest GTO to ever race the Trans Am is out there today. The only Chevy 2 Nova Chevy to be out there in the Trans Am, and it's out there racing today. Great history. And again, you know, Ben, you were talking about it yesterday, and I can't emphasize enough. Again, these are original cars, and you know, they don't have replacement parts for these cars. You can't go down to your local Chevrolet dealership or Ford dealership to get a replacement part. Original, and this is because of such a wide range in the year 66 through 72. Wide range of development is the tires. They aren't a spec tire, but yeah, you were showing those stickers. I think Goldsmith was a little bit unsettled by finishing as far back as he did yesterday. Goldsmith usually runs very at the front. He also has a Chevy Decon Monza that he was running out there a little bit earlier today. Richard Goldsmith, a great driver and a great custodian of history.
Speaking of tires, it was pretty neat. We had Bill Ockerland with us with the Parnelli Jones Bud Moore car at Indy. And Parnelli Jones was kind of reunited with it. And the first thing he said as he stepped up, he told Bill, he said, well, you got the wrong tires on. He was wearing Goodyears. And that was really funny. But Parnelli Jones got inside, closed the door, got the biggest smile on his face and said, this is like a time machine.
Yeah.
It's like it still fits like a glove. Just look at this big group of cars coming into Optima Batteries, turn 7.
Yeah, I believe it was 1970 that was the only year that all the factory were in on this Trans Am series. You had Dodge with the Challenger, Plymouth with the Barracuda, American Motors Corporation at the time with the Javelin, and Chevrolet with the Camaro, Ford with the Boss 302. Pontiac a little bit later to the scene, did come in later on with the Pontiac Trans Am Firebird. Elliott Forbes Robinson winning in 1981, a little outside of this specific group. But that was the only year that all the factories were in, and they were going at it tooth and nail, just like they are out there on the track, Ben.
There's Michael Eisenberg in the car, the Cougar, painted by George Barris and Tony Hart.
And that was Camaro's that was delivered here in the Pacific Northwest, and he bought that from a dealer. The dealer had just had it in the showroom only one day, and Hart was able to buy that, and he made it into a Trans Am race car, raced it a couple of times in the 68 season, I believe it was.
Look at this. This is the battle for the lead. Ryan Turry, Craig Conley, James Biddle, John Hildebrandt, all going up through Mission Foods turn 2. We got to stay with this race. Oh, Hildebrandt gets it a little bit wrong. Sends out that huge wide end of that Pontiac Tempest, that big trunk lid. Everybody kind of checks up a little bit. And you know that that's something that Craig Conley and James Biddle love, because they know that's going to put some different distance between them. Because, man, coming into Big Machine Vodka Spike Coolers turn 11, group of 8 of these historic Trans Am cars, we could have thrown a blanket over them.
And the only one that started at the front was Ryan Turry. The rest of those cars, I know Conley and Hildebrandt did. I believe Biddle as well started at the back of this. Again, they inverted that. I think that's a great idea. It adds a lot of intrigue and adds a lot of excitement as they work their way up through the field.
So here we are. Ryan Turry comes around. John Hildebrandt somehow gets behind and gets through Craig Conley. Let's see if he can hold it. Optima Batteries turn 7. Really
for the inside.
Hard on the gas, coming inside as that Tempest. Ryan Turry sees him, gives him the room like he should, ducks in front of Craig Conley, but now John Hildebrandt this race.
I thought he'd opened the door for Conley also, but he was able to just get that car somehow pointed in the right direction and held Conley off. But yeah, I was thinking, you know, that Hildebrandt, if he could get around that group that you were talking about earlier, Ben, that he certainly has done that, even with that kind of lurid slide that he had going through the turn.
James Biddle in that gray coupe, Mustang coupe, And there's Bill Godwin back in the mix. So now we've got a group of 5 here. As they come up around, Big Machine Vodka Spike Coolers. Woo, Biddle in the middle of 3 wide going into 11. That is not suggested, gentlemen.
That is not even supposed to be possible.
No, not with these big cars.
No, that is a very tight turn. Yeah. 11, you do not have very much room on the outside or inside to give. There's a wall coming up as well, so that was excellent driving.
Yes, it was.
And priceless, irreplaceable cards.
Yeah, John Hildebrandt falls back a little bit. As we've got now Craig Conley, Ryan Turi. Looks like Bill Godwin in 3rd.
So those cars at the back have come to the fore. As Hildebrandt started way in the back, he would have been in last because he finished 1st yesterday. Conley, who I believe finished 3rd, would have been probably in the row ahead of him. And Biddle also, I believe, finished in the top 6. So those 3 cars now up in the top. And Bill Godwin, I believe he's going to become a call to Turi the next lap by.
I think I misspoke. I think it's Craig Conley, James Biddle, Bill Godwin, Ryan Turi.
Oh, okay.
Trying to see who's there.
So Godwin's already been able to get by Turi.
Yeah, John Hildebrandt, Richard Goldsmith in the Sam Posey car, and then I think Brian Ferry. Moment right here, just a couple laps ago. He's collected it now. James Biddle coming around Craig Conley 2 weeks in a row. These two have just been going head to head with each other.
And they're side by side going into the turn. Looks like he's going to be able to keep that. No, they're side by side now, man. Look at that.
Bill Godwin closing the door on Craig Conley.
Hard.
Yeah. Yeah, that was not with good manners.
And again, these are the original cars. You just look at this and you're in amazement that 50 years ago these cars were the state of the art. Now they're historic Trans Am cars being out there, original parts, original liveries, original everything except for the tires, and they're out there going tooth and nail.
Yeah, this is so much fun. So right now it's James Biddle, Austin Biddle. I hope you're watching. Dad's leading coming into Big Machine Vodka Spike Cooler turn 11, followed by Bill Godwin. I was showing that at the grid walk, his actual door cards, the interior of the car, just as it came from GM. Then Craig Conley, Turi going through there, followed by that Dodge Challenger, Sam Posey Challenger. Biddle's car looks hooked up right now.
Now, the two best things about the historic Trans Ams, they have wonderful starts and they have fantastic finishes. I believe we're building towards another good finish. Biddle may be out front, but I don't think Conley or possibly even third place Godwin may be through yet. They may have another run at him here. We should be getting close to the white flag coming up here shortly. This historic Trans Am second feature race of the weekend. Ben, great history and great racing out there.
Yeah, so Austin Biddle wants us to talk about the gold medallion program. Most qualify for gold medallion because of the HTA, but so James Biddle's car is a gold medallion car, and it is because he's gone through a rigorous program through SVRA and Vintage Racing to prove everything that he has in the car is totally authentic. And it still has the camera mounts from making the movie of Ford Flat Out, where they used to put a 16mm camera on top of it and race like that. But look at these cars sliding through here. This is so much fun to watch. And there's Andrew Alcázar. You think that's wrong, but we'll see. I might be getting punked on that.
No, he was in an earlier race, and I called him Alcázar just for you.
All right, nice. It's a beautiful car. That's a Warren Tope car, and he was telling me the story. There was kind of a backdoor deal with Ford, and he was able to get that car and some of the parts out of the Ford factory without people knowing. One of those little kind of handshake and nod deals that Warren Tope was able to create. And then there's the Chaffee College car.
Yeah, Tope had actually purchased an ex-George Foreman Ford Mustang that he took to the runoffs. That was the car he was going to use. That car developed a mechanical problem, so he had this car delivered to him, and this here is the car that Warren Tope actually won the A Sedan National Championship in that year.
So there we are. There's our leader, James Biddle, 1968 Ford Mustang Tunnel Port 302. There's Craig Conley in the green car, Ryan Turi in the Bob Barker Ford Mustang 13 AS. That means a sedan. Not what you're thinking.
Michael Eisenberg out there in the only Mercury Cougar XR7. That is an independent Cougar. I know Bud Moore ran the Mercury Cougar program at one time, but that is not one of the factory cars. However, it did help in winning and getting Lincoln Mercury to second in their Trans Am Championship manufacturers. That's as close as they were ever to the Manufacturers Championship, finished 2 points behind them. The white flag next time by a bend, and see if James Biddle can hold on to that lead, or whether it will be Bill Godwin or possibly even Richard Goldsmith or Craig Conley that will take the win today in the historic Trans Am feature, Mission Foods Sonoma Speed Tour at Sonoma International Raceway.
Yeah, you never know here. People's tires are going away. Let's see if Richard Goldsmith has been saving his new Goodyear sticker tires. We're not sure. Here's that Chafee Collins car. Look at this. Is that Brian Farron and Andrew coming at it side by side as they come into Optima batteries, turn 7. Let's see if Brian Farron can hold it. He takes the outside. He's giving him some room, which is what he should be doing.
Great pass there. Set him up well coming, like you were saying earlier, coming down to that carousel. Was able to set him up and, right to the inside and made that pass.
So here's James Biddle coming around. You can see him working that wheel as they come around Big Machine Vodka's Spike Coolers, turn 11. And that tunnel port, 302. Big lead for James Biddle as he's going to take the white flag this lap. So this is the final lap for historic Trans Am at the Mission Foods Sonoma Speed Tour as he goes up into Mission Foods turn 2. Big bump right there I haven't seen before.
Surprised.
Hope that was a bump.
Surprised that Hildebrand has drifted back as far as he has. He was right up at the front, in fact won yesterday. But we still are building towards a good finish. Again, these cars will be with us again in September, Watkins Glen, and hopefully you'll be there. And if not, you join speedtour.tv/YouTube for the live stream production. Trans Am. Then we're building towards a big finish. Should be James Biddle for the win. See who will finish second, third, and fourth.
We'll see. There's a lot that can happen as they come down into WeatherTech Carousel up into turn 7, but it looks like it is Biddle, Godwin, Turi, Conley, and Hildebrand.
See if Biddle can hang on.
Here he comes into Optima batteries, turn 7. Hard onto the brakes. If there is a straightaway here, that might be the longest straightaway, but it's probably not long enough to call a straightaway. And then it's basically a 180 back down the hill, down into the twisty bits here, the Franklin Road Apparel Complex.
And you say stood on the brakes. That's what they had to do in the day. Again, these brakes are not the fancy carbon fiber brakes we're used to seeing. Those are just really steel pad brakes, and you had to stand on them to get them to slow the car down from those high horsepower speeds. Headed down towards through the Franklin Road S's, through to turn 10, WeatherTech turn, and see if Biddle looks like he may be able to hold on, but it could be a good battle for second though, Ben.
Yeah.
See, that's Conley right there in that Ford Mustang.
Okay, so here we go. James Biddle taking the checkered flag here at Sonoma Raceway. On here last year with us, Bill Godwin. Oh, and look at this. Oh, I think Turi just got it over Craig Conley.
Wow.
And then Richard Goldsmith on John Hildebrand. And then the Warren Tote car, Andrew Alcazar and Brian Farron coming through. As you can see, the modern Trans Am cars being loaded in for TA2 right now.
What a great finish, though. It was second. There was the battle there between Turi and Conley. And I believe you're right. I believe Turi just snuck in ahead of Conley, Ben, for second, third on the podium. That was going to be Craig Conley. John Hildebrand, yesterday's winner. I think he's going to be finishing, and he is finishing in 6th overall. But great battle out there, great history. Great for the fans to see historic Trans Am. And again, what a contrast, Ben. We have the historic Trans Am cars who are just on track. They're coming in after the checkered flag thrown. And in the background, you can see the contemporary Trans Am cars. Great transition.
Yeah, it is. It's great. And you can really see the genesis with the cars that are currently on track and the cars that are about to be on track. And a Camaro looks like a Camaro and a Mustang looks like a Camaro even 50, 60 years later. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've got some great highlights from this race that we're going to show you right here. So here's the start of the race. They take the green flag here at Sonoma Raceway as Bill Godwin ducks into the inside, followed by Turi as they go up Mission Foods. Then they're coming around turn 11, side by side. So much side by side racing here. Editing the highlights reel must be difficult for this group. Oh, here it is. Here's Brian Farron making, oh, what a save. Man, that's awesome to see that in replay, and really good that he was able to collect that. Look at this side by side. That's not recommended, gentlemen, coming through WeatherTech Carousel on tires that just, and then here's that big group we had about midway through, led by Ryan Turi, and then here's that pass with those great blue wheels of the Gray Ghost at Optima Batteries, turn 7. And then there's the checkered flag, James J. Biddle, Bill Godwin. That was fun.